Pathfinder Remastered is here, and it brings some big changes to the game, backward compatible or not. In this video, I'll go over the changes to abilities, now called attributes, and what they mean for the game. I'm Dave, and this is the one and only RPG Rundown. The first two remastered books are the Player Core and the GM Core. This video is about changes in the Player Core, and I'm just going to coin my own terms here to keep things clear. I'll refer to original 2nd edition as 2E and the remastered 2nd edition as 2R. In 2E, abilities work pretty much the same as they do in Dungeons & Dragons. There's a base score, and a modifier is derived from it. If the score is above 10, the modifier is positive, and if below 10, it's negative. In 2R, it's now just modifiers, no base score. And the name has been changed from ability to attribute for some added clarity, since the word ability is used in many different ways in the rules text. In 2R, the word attribute is only ever used to describe the attribute modifier and its related concepts. Given that now there's only the attribute modifier, I found it odd they kept the word modifier as a part of it at all. Why not just have the attributes be single digits, positive or negative, and use the language, add your intelligence attribute to this roll, and so forth? But I suppose the decades-long history of +1 and -1, also known as bonuses and penalties, is a little too ingrained to change suddenly, along with the primary change of removing the base score. Or maybe it's just easier to think of adding a negative number to a roll's total in terms of a negative modifier. Well, either way, when you build a character in 2R, you don't begin with any base score for attributes. Instead, your attribute changes are applied directly as changes to the modifier rather than to a base score. Boosts are applied in cumulative +1s and flaws in cumulative -1s. For example, let's say I'm building an elven wizard. Choosing the elf ancestry gives me 1 boost to my intelligence. Then I choose the teacher background, which gives an intelligence or wisdom boost. Of course, I choose intelligence. So now I have 2 intelligence boosts for +2. Finally, I choose the wizard class, which gives me 2 boosts to intelligence, bringing me to +4. Although I will also get 4 free boosts to any attributes of my choice, +4 is the maximum attribute modifier for a first level character, so I stop here. The removal of base ability scores changes almost nothing in the outworking of the game, as very little in 2E directly used a base ability score, and those things are easily adapted. For example, feats in 2E had ability minimums, but now in 2R, the attribute minimums for feats are simply expressed as modifier minimums. Do note that once stats are above +4, it takes 2 boosts for an increase. In other words, it takes 1 boost to go from +3 to +4, but 2 to go from +4 to +5. Only dealing with the attribute modifiers simplifies the game quite a bit, and the idea has been around for a long time in other game systems such as True 20. This streamlining seems like a better way to handle attributes, so why were there ever any core ability scores in the first place? Well, as you probably know, Pathfinder was originally based on the OGL, derived from Dungeons & Dragons 3rd edition. In OD&D, ability scores were rolled at random on 3d6s, which is why the top score you could get was 18 and the minimum was 3. As D&D went ahead in editions, alternate ways of generating ability stats were developed and eventually became quite popular, but the option to randomly roll stats on sets of 3d6s is still in the D&D game, so the core ability score still has to be there for compatibility between these differing methods of getting those scores and ultimately those modifiers. Pathfinder had kept this same backward compatibility with rolled abilities until now in the remastered rules, and indeed, this could be one more of the several ways they're cutting ties with the OGL in the new books. Now, some old school gamers might miss the fun of randomly rolling for stats, and I do admit that that part of it is fun, but when actually running the games, I've found them to be so unpredictable that rolled stats can either break game balance or make the game unnecessarily hard for a character, so I don't really allow them anymore. Personally, I'm happy with this simplified direction, and I'm glad to see them going this way with the game. But I understand why some may not, and it does seem clear that Pathfinder's designers have, at least in this regard, decided not to continue some of the old school flavor of the game. But I have a hunch that most gamers will find this streamlining useful. Well, that wraps it up for the changes to attribute modifiers. Leave a comment below, tell me what you think about this new direction in the remastered edition, and until next time, may all your 20s be natural.